Alright, here's my Futaba 8FG removed from its entire case in order to replace the aileron trim switches, which I have already removed. So this is in its disassembled state. The aileron trim switches have been removed here. The process can be quite the ordeal in order to get it accomplished. You have to remove the transmitter portion here from the main board, which is generally and normally connected to the frame. And so you have to desolder the transmitter portion from the frame, from the main board, in order to get it apart, in order to gain access to the trim switches to desolder them. Here's two here, the two here, two over here, and then two on this side. So I will go through a step-by-step as I put this back together. So this would be the first step. I'm going to resolder in some new trim switches, which I ordered from Mauser. Here's the part. I will post the part number later on if you so desired to want to go through this ordeal yourself instead of buying a new radio. Okay, so I've got the new pins soldered in. As you can see here, two new pins are in place. They are soldered and connected. And now we'll just continue on putting this assembly back together. I'll come back when I get it back into the plastic frame and all set to roll. I have now resoldered the transmitter board back onto the plastic frame. As you can see, I will continue on with the build, which will be installing this board back down, which is just simply putting it in 3 different screws. Alright, my next step in putting the 8FG back together was to put the switches back into place and screw them into place. Unlike a previous video I did, they do not unplug from the board. They look like they are directly soldered to the board. So you have to remove the nuts in order to get the switches out. So you take the switches out and you pull the top portions off of the dial switches to get the whole thing to come out. So now I am reassembling it, and I have already started putting some screws back into place to put it all back down, fed all the wires back up into place. And so I will continue with the build and come back and let you see where we're at. Okay, one little clarification I need to make as I was putting this back together that I caught was this wire here was originally underneath here, came up through this side over here. It didn't allow this to sit properly, so make sure you feed the wire up through the center hole here, and it should go together easier. I'll be back in a little bit. Step would be to plug in the power into your LCDC screen before placing screws to hold your board and everything back into place. Otherwise, it can be a challenge to get the LCDC power plugged back in. So get that plugged in first, and then we'll start buttoning up the screwing everything back into place so that we can get it back together. And then I'll come back and redo the ribbon cable once everything's attached and nice and firm. So power, screws, ribbon cable. Okay, I've got all the gimbals back in, all the screws put back in place. Now that's all that's left is to button up the front side and then put the back on. And here we just got to put the ribbon cable back in, put the clear plastic plate over the front, and then power it up and check to see how it works, make sure everything's working right. So once I get that all completed, I will come back and see if we've got a working trim switch. We've got the LCD board put back into place, put the battery in, radio powers up like normal, and our test for the trim switch. As you see, it actually is working again, whereas before it was not. I could only trim to the right, but I could not trim to the left, and now I've got both functioning properly. I went ahead and changed out both switches just in case, but we got our trim working there. So there's your process for going in and changing out your trim switch. All I got left to do now is button up the back end of this thing and we're good to go. So for referencing, the process is you got to pop the plastic screen off the LCDC on this side. So pop the plastic off that covers this. Come in here, release your LCD screen underneath with the ribbon cable release. You just lift up on this little brown tab down here, and your ribbon will slide on out. Unplug the power cord, take the LCD off, and then when you get to the other side, it's a process of just removing your screws. Removing all the screws inside here that hold the gimbals. Got to remove the gimbals, remove the screws that hold down the plastic main portion. You've got to take out all your switches. The front side, there's a Allen head that you see right down inside here. Undo that Allen, that releases this portion, the hanger, and then the whole plate will come off. Once the plate is off, you're able to get the whole plastic piece out. Then your last step is to get underneath here, unplug your radio wire, and then desolder if I remember right, it was like 10 pins on this side and then 6 over here. Desolder those pins, pull off the transmitter board, and then get this whole plastic part. The whole body will release, and then you'll have access to your trim switches. I really hope this helps. So if you need to change out a trim switch sometime in the future for your 8FG, this is the process to doing it. If you got any kind of soldering skills, it's not too challenging. The only thing I did other than a typical soldering job is I had ordered some of this solder wick off of eBay for roughly 70 cents, 77 cents, something like that, and that was with shipping. I would, in the future, order this from Radical RC here in the States for like $2, and it'll be here much quicker, whereas this took nearly 7 weeks to show up from China. So, future, get the soldering wick from Radical RC. It will do the job to take the soldering off of your transmitter board here and pull it apart. Hope this helps. I will also post where I got the switches, where I picked up these switches at from Mauser, what model they are. So if you want to do it yourself, here's how you go about it. Again, I am not working for Futaba. This is something I did on my own because I didn't want to ship my radio back in and pay a fee. So there it was, not too much of a headache. And now I've got my trim switch working again, and we're ready to go fly. The last thing I will do before flying for sure is to check everything out, do a range test on my transmitter, make sure everything's working properly before I put a plane in the air. Thanks for watching, and hope this helps.